Mark Schlereth is joining us.
Yes.
Have you had a lot of speeding tickets?
I had one.
See, one.
In a school zone.
Oh, that's bad.
Well, but it was one of those where it's really light, and I was going to pick up my kids when they were in junior high school, and so it's a really bright day, and I didn't see the flash. And I got a ticket for going. I think I was going 26 and a 20.
Ooh, yeah.
And I actually pulled up to school, and it was a motorcycle police officer pulled behind me, and so I'm just waiting in the school parking lot in the pickup line. He pulled right behind me, and all of a sudden knocked on my window, and I was like, "Yeah, what are you doing?" Basically, he gave me a ticket.
So Joy's over here flying around through America. Has got a bunch of speeding tickets.
Well,
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So you played with John Elway in the Super Bowl.
Sure.
And
two times I did.
2 times, but one of them, it was the lowest quarterback rating ever for a Super Bowl. Elway had
for a winning quarterback in the Super Bowl. Yes,
he had, by John's definition, a stinker. Do you remember the game?
Sure, absolutely. Super Bowl 32.
What happened? Why did John struggle?
Well, I mean, one, it was the Green Bay Packers and
Reggie White.
Yeah, Reggie. Well, all that, but it was one of those situations where we had gone into that game plan saying, listen, the way we're designing this game plan, it's not dependent upon you. Like, it's going to be Terrell Davis's in the rushing games. That's what's going to win this.
So you guys came into the game knowing John didn't have to carry you?
Absolutely, 100%. You know, it's amazing when you game plan. This is what these coaches have done that were in the Super Bowl. Sean McVay, Bill Belichick. When you game plan your game and you tell your players, I think this is what actually makes these two teams alike going into this thing, is they don't only tell their players, like, here are the plays we're going to run, but this is how we're going to run them, how we're going to execute them. This is why we do it this way, and here is how it's going to win us a football game. So when you talk to their players, they have more depth of knowledge football-wise than the average player, because there is this open dialogue about coaching, about teaching. It's not. There's a lot of coaches that will say, this is how we do this, and you say, why? And they say, because we've always done it that way.
Oh, yeah, I've had bosses like that.
Sure. And so there's an exchange of knowledge between these two teams. That's why you saw them here in the Super Bowl. Now, the game didn't go very well for the Rams. We understand that. But that's what separates them. So Super Bowl 32, Mike Shanahan came up with a game plan on how we were going to run the ball against the Green Bay Packers, which nobody had been able to do. And essentially, long story short, we exchanged. The outside linebacker became the safety, and the safety, Leroy Butler, who made every play in their running game, he became the weak side linebacker, and we ate them up. And it was so funny because he was like, this is what's going to happen. Here's how we're going to exchange the blocking assignments. Eddie McCaffrey, you're going to be in a slot. You're going to go get him, and you guys change and go get you guys inside, your guards and your tackles and your centers. You guys are going to be in charge of Leroy Butler. Very first play of the game, man. We're running 18 handoff. Here he comes down. I'm like, here he comes, here he comes, here he comes. Wham! Get him. You know, it's a however many yard gain it is. Maybe it was the second play of the game. And when that happens to you as a player, you're like, man, our coach is dialed in and we're going to win this thing, right?
Yeah, no, and it's funny because, you know, Brady and Edelman are an interesting segue off that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they're kind of playing at a different level. Mm-hmm. They're somebody told me this once about the NBA. They said there's a lot of guys that play. There's not a lot of guys that lead or think when they're playing. Steph Curry is a great example, that Steph is thinking the game and playing the game.
Right.
Some guys just play. Same in the NFL. Talk about Brady and Edelman and that relationship.
Well, I think the thing about them is they see the game the same way. And so when they see leverage and they see defenders, they both read the same thing. They're so in tune with one another. And that's why you constantly see Edelman motioning from outside to inside, right? One, we need to get him stacked, and we need to get him a free release at all times. We can't let people jam him up.
Yeah.
So he's going to go. They're going to basically run what we call option routes or choice routes, right? We're going to run everybody else off, and we're going to say, Edelman, you read it with Tom Brady, and basically wherever the leverage is, run away from it. So if all of a sudden you're running a shallow cross and the guy jumps underneath you, whoop, take it to a whip route and take it to the outside. And so they read the same thing, and as soon as they see that defender's position, that leverage, bam, they hit it. And you know what? They're almost never wrong. They're almost always 100% on the same page. They threw one in that third drive, or that touchdown drive, not the third drive, but the touchdown drive, where Edelman had a shallow cross, and he turned it to a seam, and it was boom right there. Like the two of them on the same page based on leverage, based on positioning of the defenders. So it really becomes, hey, let's go play. Like you play with your kids in the neighborhood when you were your buddy. Like, hey, man, go down to the tree and, and then take a left at the tree and then stop at the fire hydrant and cut back inside and I'll hit you. It was one of those things. And they just play schoolyard football within the parameters of what we're calling on offense. And they're just a bunch of inside option routes based on leverage. And those two are just synced.
A lot of people are suggesting the Lombardi Trophy should be renamed the Belichick Trophy.
No, you can't. Really?
I don't even think. I'm not sure Belichick would like that. He's into history.
No, he's into. First, the other thing is think about Lombardi, right? We got a seal here, and we got a seal here, and we're gonna run it up the alley.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do with Belichick? Like, we're on to Cincinnati. We're on to, you think that signature kind of.
Yeah. Also,
you gotta have that.
People will riot.
Yeah, the Lombardi family's beloved.
I mean,
Lombardi,
yes, and the Patriots and Belichick are not.
Look at. We came out with one. What if the trophy looked like this?
Oh yeah, that's a gorgeous look.
I mean, Yeah,
I
think the kissing of the trophy as it gets passed around will probably end there.
Yeah, yeah. I will say this. I don't ever remember. You had a great coach, Mike Shanahan.
Yeah,
but I never remember, even with Jimmy Johnson. I don't ever remember a football team winning 3 games in the playoffs, and I truly believe New England had less talent than each team and won significantly the coaching battle. I've never even thought about that. And I'm driving in this morning, and I'm thinking, even as good as Jimmy Johnson was and Pete Carroll and Bill Parcells, I never thought with the New York Giants they have less talent than the next 3 teams they'll play. New England's got 12 draft picks. Gronk's retiring. It is a roster that lacks a deep threat. Trey Flowers is really their only pass rusher. Not a ton of Pro Bowl, all-pro guys. I got to be honest with you. It felt like yesterday coaching was a big part of the game.
Huge part of it. I've done 3 Rams games in the last 2 seasons for Fox. And one of the things that Sean McVay always talks about is the illusion of complexity. When you look at the Rams, they'll run a bunch of motions. They'll run guys, tight ends across the formation, a ghost motion or a jet sweep. And the bottom line, they do all that to bludgeon you. That's what they want to do.
Yeah.
Now think about this. 15-0 this season. 15-0 when they ran it 20-plus times. 0-4, I believe, when they didn't. And you're in a 3-3 game in the fourth quarter, and you still only got 17 carries in a combination to your 2 running backs. And I get that you're only getting 3 yards a carry. I get that. But your young quarterback is stymied.
Yeah.
He's struggling.
Yeah.
He's off target.
Yes.
There's pressure. And that was the other thing. This has been a great offensive line, and they essentially just lined up and walked up a linebacker on the uncovered offensive lineman and ran pick stunts all day long.
Yeah, explain
and they never adjusted.
Explain that, because it did feel like, first of all, New England blitzed 50% of the time exactly. They're not a huge blitz team. So obviously they saw something.
Right. So when you walk up, so if I'm uncovered and I'm playing guard.
You're left guard, nobody over you.
Nobody over me. And all of a sudden the linebacker walks up. Whatever we have now, we have to call off usually. So if we have some type of slide protection, now you have to call man. Now, if slide's the other way, you can still do it. But effectively what it ends up happening is it ends up making 5 one-on-ones across the board. Okay?
And by the way, does Jared Goff have to audible out of that? That becomes more complex.
It becomes more complex. And then really what they did was they ran pick stunts. So essentially you walk up and all of a sudden, like if you're over me, all of a sudden you go try to pick the offensive tackle, and then they loop the other guy around.
Yeah.
So they're always constantly trying to, one, with the guy who's the pincher or the picker, he's trying to create outside leverage and make sure he keeps contained. The other guy is forcing Jared Goff out of the middle as they're running these games. And
too much maybe for Goff to deal with?
Well, my shock was, it got him off his game a little bit, but my shock was that the offensive line that had played exceptionally well
got worked.
Just was out of sync all day long.
3.5 hours.
All day long.
All day long.
And that goes back to the coaching aspect of it is let's just bludgeon these guys. I don't care if it's 3 yards a carry. Let's just bludgeon them, and let's shorten this game down in our favor. It's a 3-3 game. I know we haven't done it very well, but again, it goes back to one of those situations we've talked about. Oh, he's young. We're going to reinvent football. And in the last 2 games, the Patriots have started the game in against Kansas City. They were in 2 backs, 2 tights. 1 wide receiver. They went back to the 70s.
Yep.
Last night was a lesson in 1990 football. It was 2 backs, base formation, fullback. Let's scramble somebody's brains with him, right? Let's trap somebody inside. Let's wham somebody inside, and let's bludgeon these guys, and let's run everything out of base formations and not allow every one of their defensive linemen a first-round pick. Let's not allow these guys to wreck our game. That's what it was. Let's shorten it. Let's condense it. Let's run it. Let's be physical. And let's not give these guys one-on-one opportunities like the Rams are giving to us out of 3 wide sets. Let's not do that. Let's protect our quarterback. You can win a lot of games if you control the line of scrimmage. And the one thing about this whole playoff series, we talk quarterbacks and receivers and all this garbage. You control the line of scrimmage in this league, you win. It's never changed. I don't think it'll ever change.
No, I'm guilty of this too. An NBA coach once said, if you get a unified locker room and they play hard, he goes, you're 500 in this league. I don't care who you have.
Sure.
He goes, there's a lot of travel. Teams don't bring it. And it's the same in football. If you figure out the offensive line, and it's a really good group, you don't need a lot of Pro Bowlers, but it's a unified offensive front. They're smart. Generally, there's a veteran, maybe one young guy. You can win a lot of Sundays just because you make everything a little more comfortable for your young quarterback. Houston has talent everywhere. They have an atrocious O-line. I've said this in baseball. You cannot win a World Series leaking runs in the 7, 8, 9. Never been a bad bullpen to win a World Series. There has never been a bad O-line win a Super Bowl. There have been some bad defenses. There have been some weak running games. Never been a bad O-line. And this Patriot guard, center guard O-line, like Pro Football Focus has them rated 1, 2, or 3.
Well, think about this. Didn't they go to Denver and lose a playoff game in 2015, and Brady got hit like 24 times, gave a bunch of sacks, and then what did they do? Went and lured Dante Scarnecchia out of retirement?
Yep.
Was that when they got Dante after that game?
Yeah.
I believe it is.
Yeah. No, that was their worst O-line performance in a playoff game. You cannot win a Super Bowl if you're – and by the way, the Rams were great all year up front. They were terrible yesterday up front.
Yeah. And think about this. Every one of those guys is either a free agent or a draft pick except Trent Brown, who they traded for from San Francisco this year, and then their rookie first-rounder went down with an Achilles or a knee or whatever he did. And Trent became a really vital part. But left guard, center, right guard, right tackle, all drafted like the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, those type of guys. And then you had an offensive line coach bring those guys together. I've always said this about playing offensive line. It's what fascinates me. 5 guys, different parts of the country, different backgrounds, social, economic backgrounds. 5 guys, all 5 of us could be doing the wrong thing. As long as all 5 of us are doing the wrong thing together, it's going to work, right? It's when 2 guys are doing one thing, 2 guys are doing one thing, and 1 guy is doing another thing. That's when, all hell breaks loose. That's what I love about offensive line, like the cohesiveness and the togetherness and the team within the team that is playing that position. And the New England Patriots have dominated throughout the playoffs, and that's why they're the world champions.
Good to see you, anybody.
Yeah, likewise.
Mark Schlereth. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.